The MGM Grand is no longer just underperforming. It is operating under structural pressure that may redefine how Las Vegas works. Why is this happening? What is being hidden behind rising fees and declining satisfaction? Who is really benefiting from a system where customers pay more and receive less? At the same time, a second risk is emerging. Tourism is weakening, demand is shifting, and the model that built modern Vegas is no longer stable. This is not a future problem. This is already happening. Stay with me, because what's happening inside the MGM Grand may explain what's happening to Las Vegas itself. If you want more deep investigations like this, take a moment to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The MGM Grand opened on December 18, 1993, with a development cost of approximately $1 billion. At the time, it was one of the most ambitious projects ever built on the Las Vegas Strip. The vision was clear: scale, accessibility, and mass appeal. With more than 5,000 rooms, it became the largest hotel in the world. Its Wizard of Oz theme, combined with live lion attractions displayed behind glass enclosures, was designed to create spectacle while maintaining broad consumer appeal. This was a different era of Las Vegas. An era built on volume, an era built on perceived value, an era where visitors felt they were getting more than what they paid for. The MGM Grand was positioned at the center of that model. Located at the intersection of Tropicana Avenue and Las Vegas Boulevard, it benefited from one of the highest traffic flows on the Strip. For years, the property operated as a flagship asset: high occupancy, strong gaming revenue, consistent visitor flow. But the structure around it began to change. Over time, Las Vegas shifted away from an integrated ownership model toward a more financialized system. Real estate was separated from operations. Assets were sold, leased back, and repackaged into investment vehicles. The MGM Grand did not remain untouched by this transformation. What was once a fully integrated resort became part of a more complex financial structure. And today, the contrast is difficult to ignore. A property that once symbolized value and scale is now facing declining occupancy, rising costs, and increasing customer dissatisfaction. The question is no longer what the MGM Grand was built to be. The question is what it has become within the modern Las Vegas system. Today, the MGM Grand is no longer owned and operated by the same entity. The real estate is owned by Vici Properties, a real estate investment trust that specializes in gaming assets. The operations are managed by MGM Resorts International under a long-term lease agreement. This structure was created through a sale-leaseback transaction. MGM sold the physical asset, unlocked capital, and retained operational control. But that transaction changed the risk profile. Because under this model, MGM does not own the building, yet it is responsible for generating the cash flow needed to sustain it. The lease structure is widely understood to function as a triple net lease. That means MGM is responsible for property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and fixed rent payments to Vici. These obligations do not adjust with demand. If visitor volume declines, if room rates fall, if gaming revenue weakens, the rent still has to be paid. And that is where structural pressure begins. Lease agreements of this type often include escalators, meaning rent increases over time regardless of performance. At the same time, MGM carries operational leverage. Large staffing requirements, high maintenance costs, ongoing capital expenditure, all layered on top of fixed lease obligations. This creates a system where revenue is variable, but obligations are fixed and rising. And in a stable market, that structure can work. But when demand begins to weaken, it becomes far less forgiving because the margin for error disappears. And every decline in revenue flows directly into pressure on the system. The most recent data shows a clear shift in performance. According to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, total visitor volume declined 7.5% in 2025. That represents roughly 3 million fewer visitors entering the market. This decline directly impacted MGM Resorts. The company reported a 4% drop in Las Vegas revenue for the full year. Within that portfolio, the MGM Grand was identified by CEO Bill Hornbuckle as the most disrupted property in the system. Room performance reflects the pressure. During the renovation period beginning in December 2024, occupancy at the MGM Grand fell from 94% to 89%. At the same time, average daily room rates declined by $7, reaching $236. Across MGM properties, room revenue dropped from $743 million to $660 million in a single quarter. That is an 11% decrease. Citywide, the trend is consistent. Hotel occupancy fell to 80.3%, down 3.3 percentage points year over year. Average daily rates declined 5% to $183.52. Casino revenue also weakened, falling 5% according to Nevada Gaming Control Board data. These are not isolated fluctuations. They indicate a broader contraction in demand. And the MGM Grand is positioned directly within that contraction. This is where the pressure becomes structural. Because the MGM Grand is not just dealing with declining demand, it is operating under fixed obligations that do not adjust when performance weakens. The lease with Vici Properties requires consistent rent payments. These payments continue regardless of occupancy levels or room rates. At the same time, lease structures typically include escalators. That means rent can increase over time even if revenue does not. This creates a widening gap. Revenue is declining. Obligations are fixed or rising. And that gap has to be absorbed somewhere. On top of that, MGM Resorts faces operational costs tied to the scale of the property. Thousands of rooms, large staffing requirements, energy, maintenance, and security costs. These are not flexible expenses. Add to that the $300 million renovation that began in December 2024. Capital expenditure increases in the short term while revenue is already under pressure. Then there are legacy costs. The 2023 cyber attack resulted in a $100 million loss. The 2019 data breach exposed 10.6 million guest records, increasing long-term compliance and security costs. These are not one-time events in their impact. They add ongoing financial and operational pressure. This creates a system with high operating leverage. Small declines in revenue lead to disproportionate impact on margins. And that is already happening. The signs are not theoretical. They are visible in declining occupancy, falling room revenue, and increasing reliance on fees to offset losses. This is not a future risk. This is a system already under strain. The pressure on the MGM Grand does not exist in isolation. It reflects a broader shift across the Las Vegas market. According to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, visitor volume declined 7.5% in 2025, equivalent to roughly 3 million fewer people. This decline is reinforced by airport traffic trends. fewer inbound passengers, reduced frequency on key international routes. International demand has weakened significantly. Canadian airline passenger volumes dropped between 22% and 28%. These visitors historically represent higher spending per trip, longer stays, more engagement across gaming, hospitality, and entertainment. When that segment declines, Strip properties feel it first. Because the Strip operates on a tourism-driven model. By contrast, local casinos rely on regional traffic, more stable, lower volatility. This creates divergence. Strip properties face higher exposure to global demand shifts. At the same time, competition is evolving. Online gambling continues to expand, capturing a portion of discretionary spending. Consumers no longer need to travel to access gaming or entertainment. Add to that broader macroeconomic pressure. Travel is discretionary. When inflation rises or confidence weakens, spending pulls back. This is the environment the MGM Grand now operates in. A market with declining volume, shifting demand, and increasing competition. And this is where the contradiction becomes clear. The MGM Grand is charging more while delivering less consistent value. Resort fees have reached $56.69 per night. Valet parking adds another $35 per day. At the same time, occupancy is declining. Room rates are falling. Customer satisfaction is weakening. This is the paradox. In a traditional model, weakening demand leads to lower prices. Here, weakening demand is being met with higher fees. Why? Because the structure requires it. Fixed lease obligations do not decline. Operational costs remain. So pricing is pushed higher to compensate. But higher pricing reduces demand. And that creates a cycle. Declining demand leads to higher fees, leads to further decline in demand. On the surface, the MGM Grand is still operating, but beneath that surface, the system is under pressure. And the more that pressure builds, the more unstable the balance becomes. So the question is no longer about performance in a single year. It is about the structure itself. The MGM Grand was built for a model based on volume, accessibility, and perceived value. That model is now changing. Today, the system is defined by fixed obligations, rising costs, and demand that is no longer guaranteed. Revenue can fluctuate, but lease payments remain. Operational scale remains. And that creates a long-term test. Not of whether the MGM Grand can stabilize next quarter, but whether the model it operates within can remain sustainable over time. Because if demand continues to soften, and pricing continues to rise, and perceived value continues to decline, then the pressure does not disappear. It compounds. And once that process begins, it becomes increasingly difficult to reverse. The MGM Grand is not collapsing, but it is being tested. And what happens here may reflect what happens across the Las Vegas Strip in the years ahead. If you want to follow more deep investigations into how Las Vegas really works beneath the surface, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And if you want to go deeper, check out the next analysis on how other Strip properties are facing the same structural pressure.